We are here on a Friday. Today we have a very special show. We are joined by play-by-play broadcaster Mr. Kenny Albert. Like I said, it is a Friday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, and we are live.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Welcome in everyone. We are here and it is a Friday. We are a little more than a week away from the New York Jets Week 1 matchup against the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football. Everyone, today we have a very, very, very special show. We are joined by play-by-play broadcasters as versatile as it really gets. He calls all four major U.S. sports. He even called water polo in this year's Summer Olympics. Mr. Kenny Albert. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Connor. How are you? Great to be with you.
Great to have you on. How you doing today?
I'm good. Hope everything's going well on your end.
It is, and right before we get started, I see that book right in your background, and I have it right here. A Mike for All Seasons. Your new book, really biography, recently came out. Can you share with the listeners what this book is really all about?
Well, I really appreciate you asking me about it, Connor. It was published about a year ago. It was a project that took me about 2 to 3 years to complete from the time when I started during the pandemic back in 2020, putting together an outline and sample chapters and through the writing process and the editing process. And just surreal to look down and see the names Wayne Gretzky and Walt Clyde Frazier on the cover. They were kind enough to write the forwards. And it's really a compilation of stories about my early life from the moment I was born, 3 months premature. Spent the first 3 months, 2.5, 3 months of my life in an incubator in Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan. And then growing up in a sportscasting family around my father and two uncles who were longtime play-by-play broadcasters. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, set up my room like a studio. I had the desk, the bed in the middle, the TV on the other side, and I would call games off the television into a tape recorder and on to junior high school and high school, where I would write for the various newspapers at my schools in the town. Broadcasted many games for 3 years on Cox Cable on Long Island, high school basketball, football, baseball, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, some Division III college games as well. On to NYU, and then my first professional job calling minor league hockey with the Baltimore Skipjacks, and starting calling NFL games a couple of years later in 1994, and then moving back to New York when I was hired by MSG. So there's a chapter on each sport, each of the four that I've been fortunate to broadcast for such a long time. There's a chapter on the Olympics. There's a chapter on the various color analysts that I've worked with, a chapter on travel stories, a chapter on how we did things broadcast-wise during the COVID pandemic, a chapter paying it forward to young broadcasters. So it's really a combination of everything that I just talked about, and it was a lot of fun to write the book. I did it alone, did not have any ghostwriters. My family, my wife and kids were a big help, but wanted it to be my voice, my story. So wrote the book on my own. And again, very proud every time I look at it. For 34 years, I've had one job, and that's as a play-by-play broadcaster. But all of a sudden, over the last year, I added author to the business card as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, obviously, your dad, Marv Albert, but then also mentioned there your uncles, Al and Steve Albert. You mentioned that in the book also played a big role in you becoming a sports broadcaster just around the family. But we're gonna get into some Jets talk here. I wanted to start off, you called the Jets Falcons game last year, which obviously wasn't a very fun game for fans to watch. It was a dogfight. I mean, the Jets lost 13-8. That was one of many games. If the Jets just saw some competent quarterback play, Jets would have won that, along with, the the Jets Patriots game in week 3, the Jets Raiders game in week 8. I believe it was. There are a lot of games that the Jets really struggled in quarterback play last year. Obviously, the hope is for Aaron Rodgers to play all 17 games, but behind him, the Jets added veteran quarterback Tyrod Taylor. How comfortable do you feel with Taylor? Let's say Aaron Rodgers has to miss 4 or so games, 3 or 4 games for a minor injury. How comfortable do you feel? How comfortable do you feel with Tyrod Taylor taking over?
Well, first of all, before I get to that, Connor, I do remember that Falcons game well from last
Yeah.
year. And
Oh,
if I remember correctly, Tim Boyle started the game, and
yes.
then Trevor
Simeon came in.
came on a little bit later on. And I remember the weather. It wasn't great. It was a rainy day, kind of a dreary day at MetLife Stadium. So that one, is certainly in the memory banks. But first of all, I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. I felt that last year, if he stayed healthy, the Jets would have been a playoff team, and I feel the same way this year. Even at his age, you look at what Tom Brady did in his 40s, and some of the other quarterbacks who were up there in years. So, living in this area, paying close attention to the Giants and the Jets, certainly hope that both teams have good seasons. And I have the Giants opener week 1 against Minnesota on Fox. But with regard to Tyrod Taylor, he's a pro. I remember actually first meeting Tyrod when I called one of his bowl games at Virginia Tech. They played Kansas in the Orange Bowl back in 2009 or 2010, and I actually called that game for Fox with Darryl Johnston and Barry Alvarez. And at the time, Tyrod was he was in a rotation with the other quarterback, Glennon, at the time at
Mike Glennon. Yeah.
Right. They were rotating at Virginia Tech. So, that was the first time that I really had a chance to watch Tyrod. But he's a pro. He started a lot of games in the league. He's played in numerous systems. So if Rodgers were to go down, and hopefully that's not the case, I think they certainly they're in a better situation this year than they were last year as far as the veteran backup quarterback.
Now, staying with the topic of this offense, obviously, not only the quarterback position, the offense as a whole, the offensive line, most combinations in the league with 13 different combinations over 17 games. The Jets added 3 new starters on the offensive line, including 8-time All-Pro Tyron Smith. Not to mention the Jets added wide receiver Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, first receiver in Jets history to surpass 1,000 yards during his first 2 seasons. He did play with 6 quarterbacks during that span. How important is this supporting cast for Rodgers, and do you think it's stronger than going into the 2023 season?
Well, I think so. I think the offensive line is much improved. They have some terrific talent at the skills positions, as you mentioned, with Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Mike Williams. So I think it is a much improved offensive line. And I think they're certainly, at least on paper, one of the top teams in the league defensively. So I think Rodgers staying healthy is the key. I mean, he means so much to the organization. He's the leader of the offense. He's a guy who's had great success, a future Hall of Famer. He's won a Super Bowl. So, again, if he were to go down, as you asked, I think they do have a competent backup in Tyrod Taylor. And unfortunately, there aren't that many quarterbacks who make it through the season and start all 17 games. That's just the nature of the position. But it's not an easy division, obviously. When you look at Buffalo and Miami, obviously New England's in a bit of a rebuild at this point. But again, the key caveat being if Rodgers stays healthy, I think they have a terrific shot to make it to the postseason.
Absolutely. You mentioned you live in the area, so you do cover you do follow the Jets and Giants very closely. Who's an underdog maybe on this Jets offense? Obviously, you have the focal points in Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson. Who's someone that no one's talking about that you think could make an impact on this Jets offense in 2024?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know you talked about the offensive line. I mean, Morgan Moses is a guy that I've seen a lot during his years with Washington and Baltimore. I've called many games through the years that he's played in, so he probably goes underrated a bit in this neck of the woods, but he's one of those offensive linemen that you talked about that certainly could help solidify the line this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Moses is someone who played with the Jets earlier on during his career, struggled a bit there. The Jets ended up dealing him to Baltimore, where he had a ton of success. And Jet fans were like, "Oh my God, kicking themselves! What did we do here?" And now he's back in New York. Obviously, Tyron Smith, like I mentioned, 8-time All Pro. Personally, I think someone who no one's talking about. I think the only thing that's stopping him is really the snap counts. Is rookie running back Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State. I think he's a name to watch. He stood out returning kicks and punts during the preseason and also in the offense. But I'm gonna move over to the defense here. Someone who stood out throughout training camp and the preseason is Quantez Stickers. And that said, Michael Carter II and DJ Reed are both coming up in contract extensions too. And it seems to be that Michael Carter II is the one to get paid. What do you think the expectation is for Quantez Stickers in these coming years? Do you think there's a chance if the Jets let DJ Reed walk, what you've seen from him so far, do you think there's a chance that he could fill Reed's shoes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the players you talked about are so highly regarded. I haven't watched much of the Jets, close up during the preseason yet. I've been focused on the teams that I have over the first couple of weeks, so it would be hard for me to speak specifically about individual players. But just on a grand scale, I know that there are high hopes for this Jets defense.
Absolutely. Hassan Reddick is, he's been a main storyline catching everyone's attention. He's still holding out here. If he doesn't report by week 11, the Jets still have his rights for next year. You've covered the NFL for a really long time. You've seen some of these holdouts. When all said and done, there are some key dates when the fines really start to get elevated. When does Reddick give in? When do you think this gets done from what you've seen in past years?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Football's obviously, there's this big part of it that's, on the business side, and hopefully they can get things done because Reddick's a terrific player. You look at some of his sack numbers through the years. I called a lot of his games when he was in Arizona. He had some big games at MetLife against the Giants. If I remember correctly, a 4-sack game in one of the games that I worked a couple of years ago. So he would be a big part of that Jets defense, if in fact he does report and things go well on the business end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a very, very talented pass rusher, over 50 sacks these past 4 years, finished fourth in Defensive Player of the Year voting in the 2022 season. Obviously, Kenny, we're sitting here. Robert Saleh is the Jets head coach. Joe Douglas of which is the Jets general manager. They got a mulligan year last year with Aaron Rodgers going down just 4 plays into the 2024 season. If the Jets don't perform this year, they're most likely out of here. A lot of fans, okay, the Jets need to make the playoffs if they want to be employed next year. What do you think it takes for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh to come back? Is it making the playoffs? Is it winning at least one playoff game? Is it making a AFC championship run? Is it making the Super Bowl? What is the standard for you?
Well, we'll see. It's tough to say now before this season gets underway, but I have a lot of respect for Robert Saleh. Did a lot of his games when he was the coordinator, when he was on the staff in Seattle with Pete Carroll and San Francisco. And I always thought he would be a head coach whenever we would meet with him as a coordinator. Don't know Joe Douglas personally, but he has a lot of respect around the league as well. So, it's really tough to answer that question now without seeing how this season plays out. But, I keep going back to Rodgers, and if he stays healthy, I think they're a playoff team.
Week 1, Kenny, the Jets take on the 49ers now in a little more than a week. Obviously, both teams are dealing with their fair share of troubles. 49ers just re-signed Brandon Ayuk to a very lucrative deal. Trent Williams, though, still holding out. The Jets obviously have Reddick holding out. Both teams are really making a deep run in the playoffs here. What do you think the expectation is for Week 1? Who are some? I know you mentioned you haven't dug too deep into it, but do you expect a big game out of Rodgers Week 1 after him tearing his Achilles just 4 plays into last year?
I'm sure he's so anxious to get back out there, and he's going up against a really, really good defense in the 49ers, a team that's gone deep into the postseason on multiple occasions over the last 5 or 6 years. Great organization from John Lynch on down, a former color analyst of mine who's the general manager of the 49ers. And, when you look at what they've been able to build back up, you have to give them a lot of credit. So it's not going to be easy Week 1, but that Rodgers is chomping at the bit to get back out there. It's been a year since the Monday night game last year. So it should be a good one. That's one of the games that I'm looking forward to watching during Week 1. And Like I said, I'll be at MetLife on Sunday next week for the Giants and the Vikings, and then the Jets and 49ers get underway the next night.
You mentioned Robert Saleh being under Kyle Shanahan from that whole front office down. You're really impressed with the 49ers organization. Robert Saleh was a defensive coordinator who's now a head coach. DeMeco Ryans, the Texans head coach, was a coordinator under Kyle Shanahan's system. Robert Saleh hasn't returned to San Francisco to play, the team that really gave him his first massive opportunity as a coordinator. Describe what you think his emotions will feel like going into week one under the bright lights.
No, I'm sure he's looking forward to it. There are so many coaching connections out there. When you think back, first of all, you mentioned Kyle Shanahan. He was on that Washington staff when his dad, Mike, was the head coach, along with Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur. And there were one or two others who are now head coaches in the NFL who are on that staff. A guy like Sean McVay, he was John Gruden's personal assistant in Tampa Bay back in the early 2000s. So a lot of the coaching trees are intertwined. And this is just one example of Robert Saleh coaching against the organization that he previously worked for.
Absolutely. Now, Kenny, with the few minutes we have left, I want to just get into some of your broadcasting career. I know we mentioned a little earlier on in the show a bit about your book. You do play-by-play for all four major sports. Do you have any time, and what do you do in that free time? Do you have any hobbies that fans should know about you?
Well, a lot more free time in the summer months than
Okay,
the September through May or June stretch when most of the sports that I'm involved with on a full-time basis overlap. I do some baseball in the summer for Fox, but it's usually around 8 to 10 games. Did the Summer Olympics, as you mentioned, this year. Covered water polo for the first time, which was a lot of fun, but definitely have some downtime in the summer. My wife and I were able to sneak away on a couple of trips in June. As far as hobbies, I do a lot of reading, even though a good portion of that's for work. I enjoy doing that even in the downtime, watching movies, television shows, stuff with the family. So it's been nice to have that downtime, but football gets revved up now for me next week. And then when hockey starts up in October, it's a big overlap. And then I do some basketball with MSG Networks as well. So it's a fun time of the year. It's like going from 0 to 60 pretty quickly with a couple of weeks off here in August, and then everything gets started pretty soon in September and October.
Absolutely. You mentioned water polo there. That was something I definitely wanted to touch on. Not only the Olympics, where there are so many athletes, you need to know every little fact about every single one. Water polo is a sport you don't have a ton of experience with in the past. Obviously, different than calling, one of the major U.S. sports. How'd you kind of help translate those skills that you use calling basketball, baseball, football games into water polo?
Well, first of all, Connor, I really enjoy the variety of having the opportunity to call some other sports that I'm not as familiar with through the years. I've done some boxing at the Olympics. I've called some track and field and volleyball, and now water polo this year. And admittedly, did not know very much about it, to be honest. I've seen it on TV on occasion, but how to learn the rules, the strategy, the history, started reading, watching prior events, both Olympics and world championships. And we did some rehearsals prior to the Olympics, and my color analysts, Tony Acevedo and Julie Swale, were terrific assets, both Olympians in the past in their sport. And during some of the rehearsals we did, really learned a lot about some of the rules and strategy that I might not have picked up on when studying on my own. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit that in the past, I bought books such as Track and Field for Dummies, Volleyball for Dummies, Horse Racing for Dummies, when I used to host a horse racing show on Fox. So, like I said, it's a lot of fun learning a new sport, being involved in a new sport. It's a challenge, but I really enjoy the variety.
Moving back over to football, Jonathan Vilma seemed to be your normal color analyst for the past few years with the Knicks. Obviously, you've had Walt Clyde Frazier, and then obviously you're the radio voice for the Rangers. How important is it to build that chemistry with your color analyst?
Yeah, it's really important. And Jonathan and I are going into our 5th season. He's a former Jet, of course, and then won a Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints. He's a great guy, works really hard. But it is important to have that chemistry. I might hold the record. I've worked with over 250 color analysts in the various sports through the years, including Joe Namath on Jets preseason broadcast back in the late 1990s. And I've really enjoyed each and every one of them. Some of them I've only worked one game with, worked the 3 games with Joe Namath. Others I've worked 10 or 15 years with. I was with Moose Johnston for 10 years. I'm going into season 20 with Dave Maloney on Rangers Radio.
Yes.
I've worked with Clyde for about 15 years on a portion of the Knicks schedule every year. So when I first worked with a color analyst, I studied their history, either as a player or a coach, because sometimes you can integrate stories from their playing days into the broadcasts. With Jonathan, we'll often talk about his time with the Super Bowl champion Saints and the chess match that he went through during that Super Bowl with Peyton Manning when he was calling the signals for the Saints defensively. I'm sure when we worked the Jets-Falcons game last year, we talked about some of his time playing with the Jets. So that's important to develop that chemistry with your color analyst, no matter what the sport.
Absolutely. Kenny, I really appreciate you joining me here. The final question I ask to every single guest I have on the show, if you could take 4 people, anyone in the world, dead or alive, who are you taking to dinner?
Wow, that's a great question.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people answer that question by mentioning, either a great grandparent or a great great grandparent. So that would always be a lot of fun. Fortunately, I've had a couple of dinners with Wayne Gretzky. He would definitely be on the list, but I've had the good fortune to have a couple of meals with him. Would always be interesting to get together with a George Washington or an Abe Lincoln to hear about what was going on, back in the 17 and 1800s. So they would probably be on my list as well.
Oh, I really like it. And everyone, I see you in the chat. I appreciate everyone watching, and I see some callers backstage, but we do have to let Kenny go. Kenny, like I said, I appreciate you joining me. Do you have any final thoughts?
Continued success, Connor, with the show. Great questions, great research and prep, and enjoy the upcoming NFL season. Hopefully it's a good one for the Jets. Hopefully our crew will call a Jets game or two somewhere along the way. We only have our schedule for the first 4 weeks at this point, but that would be a lot of fun. And for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, here's to a great season.
Kenny, I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Kenny Albert calls all 4 major U.S. sports. I mean, even called water polo in this year's Olympics. He is as versatile as it gets, an absolute legend. Great to get him on the program. But we're going to get into your calls. Brian, we have Brian joining the show. How you doing, Brian? Brian? Hello? Brian? Can you hear me, Brian? All right, here. Let's see. I'm going to drop here. Come out and rejoin. That's what we'll do. Let's see. Let me try adding him back to the stage. Let's see if this works. You hear me? Might be an issue on my end. Hello? No, it's not. All right, I think he left. He'll be joining back. But yes, everyone, if we're gonna keep the show going here on the program, submit any questions you have in the chat. Let's see. We'll say what's up to everyone in the chat. Sorry I didn't get to all your comments. We just had a very limited amount of time. I wanted to get all the questions in. Let's see. NY Jets FL. Kenny, great job on NFL coverage. I know you're a fan of. Yeah, Kenny's great. He's awesome. He does a great job NFL, obviously. NHL, excuse me. Voice of the Rangers, obviously, with the great Dave Maloney. Chase of Sports News. Good to see you in the chat, Connor. Incredible. Shout out to my guy, Kenny Albert, too. What a combo on the screen. Chase, I appreciate that. Let's see. Dano, I got to your question. I didn't pull up on the screen, but I made sure to ask him that question. Let's see. Low Ski, good to see you in the chat. I appreciate all the support. Appreciate everyone tuning in here on this Friday afternoon edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Jeffrey, Kenny's old school, and Connor is very much talented enough to be the old school. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Joseph, good to see you in the chat. And then Battery Bros. I think the same accounts. I think that's you. So I appreciate all the support here. Yeah, so we'll get into some Jets talk here shortly. If you're just tuning in, we were joined by the great Kenny Albert. Make sure to scroll back and rewatch that once we end the show. But everyone, submit your Jet questions here in the chat. I'll start off, give you a little preview of the Jets 49ers game week 1. We're a little more than a week out. The promo video was just dropped all over social media. I think this is going to be, one of the more viewed games among all NFL games this year. Obviously, just the intensity, of Aaron Rodgers returning on Monday Night Football after obviously tearing his Achilles just 4 plays in to last year. Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh was Kyle Shanahan's defensive coordinator. The Jets returned to the Bay Area to take on the 49ers. It's, you know, I think this Ayuk extension really it does hurt the Jets' chances. However, I think the Jets, I think the Jets actually have legitimately have a real shot to win this game. From what they've shown throughout, just the roster, you look at the roster, what these young guys have shown throughout the preseason, I think there are going to be some surprises. I'm really interested to see what these undrafted free agents can do. I'm gonna go over to Leonard Taylor the third first because Jets plays Lecky Fotu on the injured reserve list, prompting that he's going to miss at least the first 4 games, I believe it is, of the season. So that basically promotes Taylor to defensive tackle 4 behind Solomon Thomas. There's even some talk possibly Taylor getting ahead of Thomas too after what he shows in the first few games. When I look at a player like Taylor, look at what he did in Miami. I think it was misused there. They tried to use him more as a nose tackle, which is not his generic style of play. So if the Jets use him properly, I think he showed a lot of really successful play throughout the preseason. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Jets utilize him and if he could show that same success he showed in the preseason. Obviously, not playing against first team players in the preseason, but still, you got to hope that could translate. So I'm really looking forward to see what Taylor could bring to the table in the first preseason game. But I don't see Brian back here. Brian, if you'd like to join the show, or anyone, please join the show. If you want to join the show, hit the pinned comment in the chat. Everyone, smash that like button, hit subscribe. We have 59, of you watching here on the program. I appreciate all the support on this Friday. Let's see. Proud New York Jet fan Nick Shine. At work, but just wanted to pop in and say have a great show, buddy. Nick, I appreciate the support. Great stream last night. Awesome stream for Bobby's birthday. Let's check our current like count on the video. We have 21 of you watching on YouTube. We only have 13 likes on YouTube, and we have 21 of you watching on YouTube, 61 total. So if you haven't already, be sure to smash that like button, to hit that subscribe button. Just hit 1,000 subscribers. Really trying to grow the channel. But I'm going to move over to Brady McGregor, undrafted free agent out of Michigan. He's been great against the pass. He's been incredible against the pass. Throughout the preseason, what we saw from him at Michigan as well. He's a big guy. Thing is, if he wants to really earn playing time, yes, it does help him that Reddick's still holding out. If he wants to earn more playing time, though, I think it's a lot about showing success against the run. Same goes for Taylor. Both of them showed tremendous success in the preseason against the pass. It's just they struggled against the run for sure. And I think this run blocking defense is definitely going to be key for the Jets, especially in week 1. I mean, they're facing off against Christian McCaffrey and the San Francisco 49ers. That is very important. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is arguably the best running back in all of football. I personally think Breece has a chance to be the best running back in all of football if he lives up to expectations this season with Aaron Rodgers. We have a caller on the line. Let's go to him. He was my co-host on the show for a little, but then he had some other conflicts, but we'll bring him in. Joseph, how you doing today?
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me, Connor?
Yeah, good to see you. I don't think I've talked to you since I don't even know, February, since we last had you here on the program. But how'd you feel throughout the Jets preseason games? Obviously, we're talking about undrafted free agents. If you look at the undrafted free agents between Leonard Taylor, Brandon McGregor, and Eric Watts, who do you have the most confidence in entering as the Jets enter week 1?
First off, I just want to say congrats on 1,000 subscribers.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I've been, out of touch,
Oh, all good.
High school's been kicking my ass recently, so
just,
getting back into the flow, hoping to make some videos. But I think McGregor is going to make a big impact on the D line. Obviously, the rotations, John Franklin Myers is gone. Hassan Reddick, who knows what's going on with him right now. We got to get that figured out. I think he's going to make a big impact. I believe he went to Florida State, a Seminole with.
No, that's Jermaine Johnson. He went to Michigan. Brady McGregor.
Michigan, sorry, yeah. I got him mixed up.
Yeah, all good.
I thought there was chemistry, but yeah, I'm excited for him, Jermaine, Quinnen, see if they could wreck some offenses. And yeah.
You mentioned Hassan? You mentioned Hassan Reddick there. Obviously, he's yet to report to New York Jets training camp. What do you want the Jets to give Reddick? Are you willing to do anything it takes to get the deal done, or do you kind of have a fine line as to what you're going to give Reddick in terms of contractual perspective?
I mean, I will say I'm very flexible. I would like, I'm fine with giving him tons of money, but there's still that side of doubt in me. He's past 10 seasons. He's getting a little older. Is his mind in the right position? Does he really want to play? This happened with, a bunch of players where they hold out and they don't have a great season. But I like what Joe Douglas was doing, telling him, hey, we're not going to trade you. We want you here. But I
Yeah,
like what he's
absolutely.
doing. So, I'm fine with going with the flow. I just want to see what, turns out of this. But yeah.
Absolutely, Joseph. We appreciate the call. Love that you join me here on the program. If anyone would like to call into the show, it is the pinned comment in the chat. But yeah, I agree there with McGregor. In terms of who I think will make the biggest impact week one, I think it'll be Taylor, just because I think there's a chance he's gonna see more reps, rather someone like McGregor. Another undrafted free agent, though, who we still haven't gotten to, is Eric Watts. Eric Watts, another, like I said, undrafted free agent, went to UConn. He's interesting because there were not like it was not considered a lock for the roster. To be fair, none of them were, but I mean, the fans weren't really surprised that McGregor and Taylor made the roster. Fans were surprised that Watts made the roster. He showed the most success against the run out of anyone in the preseason for the undrafted free agents. McGregor and Taylor, like I said, showed success against the pass, just did not seem to show success against the run. Watts was mediocre against the pass and solid against the run. So Watts is that run stuffing guy off the end who I personally I like him. I thought he showed a lot throughout training camp. Didn't really find a groove during the preseason, but I think he deserved a spot on the roster. Look at Watts. I think he's the guy. Once Reddick reports, he's the one who the Jets get rid of, unfortunately. Have him go through waivers, hopefully get him back on the practice squad. I think he's number 3 out of 3 of these undrafted free agents. I think it goes Taylor, McGregor, and then Watts. You can really make a case for either Taylor or McGregor to be in that number 1 spot. But the Jets, without I still think this team's a playoff team without Reddick. I think if the Jets want to really make that next step, though, into competing for an AFC championship appearance, that's when I think the Jets need Reddick. So as long as the Jets get Reddick back by the playoffs, I think the Jets are fine. Reddick's only hurting himself right now. And he has no leverage. If he doesn't a report by week 11, like I said, the Jets still have his rights for next year. So he's only hurting himself. Only hurting himself in this situation. Everyone smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate all the support here on this Friday. Submit your final questions in the chat if you'd like to call in, pin comment. We are going to wrap here in a few, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about this Jets 49ers matchup. I want to hear your opinions. Who do you feel is going to stand out? Who do you think could be a surprise player? What do you think Rodgers' performance is going to look like in week 1 under the bright lights? Like I said, Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan was his head coach, was a defensive coordinator, he was a defensive coordinator in Kyle Shanahan's system. But we have a very, very special caller/guest on the line. He's a content creator, Mr. James Woody, joining the show. Woody, how you doing today?
Connor, oh my gosh, it is an honor. It is literally an honor. I know we've been dealing with each other in the comments, right? Watching your show, watching my show, but we've never collabed together.
Yes.
Finally, the stars have aligned. I seen you were live. I was like, oh, this is our time. This is our time. So I am super, super stoked. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Woody. I know we followed each other on Twitter for a little while. I got to know you through your program with Boy Green. Boy Green meets Woody every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Great to have you on here. Like you said, this is the first time we've ever talked here over a camera. Like we commented in each other's shows, but first time. Great to have you on here. I just wanted to, we're talking about the undrafted free agents here. I personally think Leonard Taylor is the one who is going to make the biggest impact right away. What about you? Who do you think? It's Watts, McGregor, Taylor?
Definitely. So here's the thing. I'm the highest on Leonard Taylor for sure.
Yeah.
I think, when I see like Bryce Huff's story of an undrafted free agent that now is making tens of millions of dollars, I think Leonard Taylor III is on that path. But we know with Bryce Huff, that didn't happen in one season. It was incremental. So it might take a few years. And I think that's the same thing for Leonard Taylor. For this season, since Taylor's inside and, we got Kinlaw, we got a couple of guys inside, I think we might see one of those outside guys. My bet is probably McGregor would be on the outside, especially if Hassan doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Because now there's kind of like a hole right there in the depth chart for where he would be, right? So McDonald steps up, Clemens, right, is a name that we've heard. But I think that's the easier path to playing time is on the outside, whereas Taylor is buried a little bit because, between Kinlaw, Solly Thomas, Fotu when he gets healthy, I think there's a little bit more of a logjam there.
Yeah, I went with Taylor just because Fotu's out for the first few weeks of the year, so that's an opportunity he could definitely capitalize on. But you brought up the elephant in the room in Hassan Reddick, still holding out. Woody, when does he report?
I mean, if it was up to my hopes and dreams and my wishes, he would have showed up months ago. I feel like this scenario, right? It makes perfect sense for Hassan. He wants to get paid like a top rusher. He's been a top rusher, right?
Yeah.
So
He deserves
like
it. Yeah.
But for Joe Douglas, I wholeheartedly agree. We cannot give you the contract that you're looking for. We can't. Next year, they need to pay. So I don't care who is on the payroll. They need to pay Sauce. They need to pay Garrett. They should.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about should pay Jermaine, Brees, MC2. Like, these are players, homegrown players that Joe Douglas scouted, evaluated, said that they would be good Jets, and they've been great Jets. Why wouldn't we reward those types of players instead of paying a ransom for somebody who's never even put on the jersey? So I think those need to be prioritized. So we cannot give $28 million for the next 5 years. That cannot happen. I think if there was just a way to convince Hassan, like, hey, up your salary for this 1 year, maybe 2 years, right? Like 23, 24 million for the next 2 years. You ball out in the biggest market in this country, New York, right? I mean, Mike White is a legend. Like, Mike White he has a job for life because of just one game.
Yeah, exactly.
One game. If Hassan Reddick gets 10 sacks, 15 sacks for the New York Jets, everybody will be knocking on his door. I don't understand. His agent has let him down, not letting him know the value is beyond just the salary of playing in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the main thing is, if I'm Hassan Reddick, and I think there's some way him and his agent Tory Dandy of CAA Sports and then Joe Douglas work something out. Hey, we give you a sweetener. We guarantee some money in your deal. We really only need you for this season. You ball out this year, you get 10 sacks. I don't care what your celebration. You could taunt the fan base all you want. You get 10 sacks, whatever. You help us make a deep playoff run. Then next year you get that lucrative extension to make him one of the highest paid defensive edge rushers in all of football. So there's an easy way to do it and there's a hard way to do it. And the Jets are going the hard route right now. But it's a complete stalemate. Reddick's not showing up till the Jets pay him. Jets aren't paying him until Reddick shows up. So yeah, it's absolutely insane. But you mentioned Will McDonald there. I want to get into what your thoughts on McDonald. Obviously, not at that ideal weight. He's still at the 235 range. He's looking to get bulk up to 250. What are the expectations for McDonald? Do you think he could step in and hopefully make a leap like Jermaine Johnson did after his first year in the league?
I mean, he better. I mean, it's a hope. It's a hope. Like you said, you actually brought up a fact that I don't even hear too much is his weight. So getting pushed around is possible. I know he has that nice spin move, but at the NFL level, we need more than one move.
Vernon Golston. That's all I got to say.
Exactly. So I think we could see. I mean. Let's be frank, right? His rookie year, he didn't really play too much. So really, any amount of production would probably be considered a leap. So I think that is possible, right? To see, maybe 6 sacks this season. I think that's possible, especially with the pressure of Quinnen, the pressure of Jermaine. Like if Jermaine collapses the pocket and pushes him, right, pushes a QB to Will's side, Will gets the sack. Right? So I think you can see stuff like that. I wouldn't, because there are a lot of people that say, oh, Hassan's gone, don't even worry about it. Will just replicate that. I do not see that happening. I don't think there is a 15 sack person, on this team, unfortunately. But I think, between Jermaine, Quinnen, like they could all combine for like 40. It's just like going to be like an even split. But with Will specifically, he's definitely, I think he's going to be productive. Like I said, I think 5 to 7 sacks is a fair expectation for him, but I don't think he's going to be a game record close to the caliber of even Bryce Huff let alone Hassan Reddick.
You mentioned no player being able to fill the shoes, no one player being able to fill the shoes of Hassan Reddick, and I completely agree with you there. What do you think a combination of guys is going to look like? Who are those players that are going to help fill the shoes? Personally, I think it's a combination of Takk McKinley and Jermaine Johnson. Those are the two names I think that are going to step up and fill these shoes.
Yeah, I gotta wholeheartedly agree. I'm literally praying that Takk brings out that spinner-Rooney in a real game. I'm gonna have to practice. I tried. I almost threw my back out trying to spin a Rooney. But yes, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, if Will could also help there, that would be great. But I think you hit the nail on the head on first and second right there. Is Takk McKinley, Jermaine Johnson. I'm expecting another leap for Jermaine. I've been so proud of what he's been able to do from rookie year to sophomore, and now I really think the league is going to know about Jermaine.
Yes.
And then just having that pressure from the interior with Quinnen, and Quinnen's going to be eating double teams, sometimes triple teams. Having that makes it so much easier for the edge, because now, whether that's Takk or Will, that person will always have a one-on-one matchup. Because you got to worry about Quinnen and you got to worry about Jermaine. So I think in that order, Jermaine, Takk, Will hopefully pick up that slack.
Yeah, just two more quick things here before I let you go. I mentioned that the 3 undrafted free agents on the defensive line. One of them was personally I thought was a bit of a surprise, Eric Watts. I thought he was going to be a practice squad guy. The Jets elect to go with 11, including Watts for the defensive line, not including Reddick, and then obviously 9 offensive linemen. When you look at the defensive line, like I said, they go with 11. They're not going to carry 12 once Reddick finally reports. So when you look at this line, Reddick finally reports, whenever that is, who's the one to go?
Yeah, I think you kind of hinted to it, and I'm going to have to co-sign. Where's my pen at? I got to co-sign that. I think it's Eric Watts. I mean, not to say he's a bad player or anything like that, but unfortunately, it has to be somebody, right? It can't be nobody. It has to be somebody. And I think what we've seen from McGregor, what we've seen from Taylor, I mean, how can you cut those guys? And I'm not saying that Watts – cut him, but he just doesn't have the same tape of what I've seen. And it's a results-oriented business. So we got to bring in the 15-sack guy for somebody who I don't think on the NFL level this year would move the needle too much. So I would say Watts. McGregor, I think, his motor could surprise people, because they have that rotation, right? Ulbricht's rotation. It was criticized at first, and now we've seen this is actually working. Look at what Bryce Huff is doing in these little amount of snaps. If anybody is a candidate to replace that type of production, it would be McGregor. So that means that there really is no real spot for Watts once Reddick comes back. Hopefully, if he comes back, there wouldn't be a spot for Watts after that.
Absolutely. My final question. It's on the offensive side of the ball. Isaiah Davis is someone I mentioned earlier on the show. He's caught my eye throughout the preseason. Obviously, with the Jets switching over to that power back scheme, you have Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. People are saying it's going to be like thunder and lightning. Breece's elusiveness, his ability to change the field. Braylon Allen his ability to break through tackles and all that. What are your thoughts on Isaiah Davis? And do you think the only thing that's really stopping him from success this year, stardom, is that snap count?
Definitely the snap count is going to be a factor, right?
Yep.
That's definitely something. I like Davis. I feel bad because I was such an Izzy Abonaconda fan that when they said his name, running back, I was like, oh, why they, draft this guy. But I actually, if I'm picking, and I'm not Brant Boyer, I look nothing like him, but that would be my pick to be the returner. Is Isaiah Davis? I feel like he has looked fantastic
on punts.
On punts, punts
Okay.
for sure. I think he is good in open space. I mean, I loved my boy Codrington. But,
I love him. Oh God, don't even mention that, please.
But no, I think Davis, like over Gibson, over anybody that I've seen on the team, I like Davis in that role, and I think that would be really good for him to kind of have like that niche, as like you said, those killer bees, like they are going to be locked into their positions, just so that Isaiah still gets his feel for the game and being out there in NFL speed. I think it would be a real big win for the Jets to get him out there returning punts, maybe even kickoffs, as they try to figure out the new rules, kind of have that two-man going. But I like him, and he's a dual threat, which I love. He can catch and he can run, which is why I'm saying to return, right? Because you need sure hands for that. So I think Davis, I've liked what I've seen.
Woody, I really appreciate you joining me here. The final question I ask to every person I have on the show: for dinner guests, anyone in the world, dead or alive, who are you taking?
Yo, wasn't expecting the tough questions today, Connor. Oh my god, 4? You said 4? That's a lot of people. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me see. Who is gonna be? Who's gonna be interesting? Number one, I'm gonna go with Joe Namath. Just gotta talk to him. I gotta see Broadway Joe. I gotta talk to him. See what's up. Number 2. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Anyone in the world,
dead or alive? It could be a family member. It could be someone around the NFL.
Yeah, that's so funny you said it, because I was actually thinking about a family member, but I was like, anyone in the world? Though? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? Give me JFK. Let me talk to that man. All right. Let me talk to Mr. President. Okay. I'm almost there. Dwayne Johnson. Right. I think.
Okay, The Rock. I like it.
Yes. If you smell what he's cooking.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're a wrestling guy too. I forgot.
Oh my God, Die Hard. I might have to go. I might have to double dip and pick like another wrestler. I might have to do that. No. I feel like I don't have any female representation. I need some female. You know what? Beyonce. Let's throw down. Yes, Joe Namath, JFK, The Rock, and Beyonce. That's my dinner party.
Woody, I love it. You got any final thoughts?
Honestly, I just want to thank you, Connor. Like, you've been doing fantastic work. Like I said, or like you said before, we've been commenting on each other's shows. Never been able to connect. I'm so happy we're able to do this. Hopefully, this is the first of many times that we can connect. I think you'll be at the Jets.
I will. I'll be at the tailgate. I'll be at the tailgate. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we will be tailgate. I'll see you there. So I'm excited to see you in person. But definitely appreciate this first time. Won't be the last time. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only James Woody. Find him on Twitter, Instagram, at the James Woody, every Tuesday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Woody's Instagram, Boy Green's Instagram, Boy Green's Twitter, Boy Green's YouTube, Boy Green Meets Woody. They do some really cool stuff over there. Third Party Thursday. They have a surprise guest every week. They just had Italy Jet on yesterday. So definitely go check out his work. Great guy. Great to finally get him here on the program. Well, I think we're going to wrap up on that note. Everyone, I really appreciate you guys watching. Everyone, smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And as always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.